Good morning, paranormal community, and thank you for partaking here in this wonderful episode of the Odyssey Files. I'm your host, Michael O'Neill. With me for the first time as co-host, but not the first time being on the show, is paranormal researcher Anthony Hernandez. Welcome, Anthony. How are you?
Hello, I am doing fine. Early in the morning, but that's okay.
As excited as always, I see.
Oh, yeah.
So, want to start the show, obviously, by explaining why Mr. Hernandez is here. So, obviously, over the past couple weeks, we've either not been on, or Dave has kind of had health issues, and that's pretty much the reason we have not been on. Sometimes I know last week, like he let me know at like 5 a.m. Sunday morning that he wasn't going to be able to go. So that's why we weren't on last week. But so he has decided after the recent medical issues to take a few weeks and recuperate, get back to the full strength Dave we all know and love, and so I reached out to Anthony to see if you wanted to come on as a co-host to get the experience, because you are in the midst of transferring your new show off of AI, which you should be doing, to you, which you should be doing. And so I wanted to give you the experience, as well as having a co-host of podcasting. God, it feels so lame being able to say that. Like, you can't even say radio show. It's podcasting.
Same thing.
You know what it's turning into? Because pretty soon it'll be like the morning shows, and then like nothing, and then commercials. Because everybody will be doing podcasts.
That's pretty much the way it is now anyway, I think.
I don't listen to radio. I can't. It's all commercials. So I have the account with YouTube, so I don't have to listen to their commercials, and then I throw on some tune or whatever that I'm looking to listen to, and then it just keeps playing music over and over again. I give hours and hours and hours of music, not one flipping commercial. So I'm happy about that. But again, let me just say it now, and I'll say it pretty much at the end of every show. Thank you for agreeing to come on. Appreciate it.
Oh, you're welcome.
Yeah. And the research that you have done into not only tonight's show, or today's show, I should say, but the next couple shows that we're going to do is far and wide beyond what Dave and I do. Dave will drop down a rabbit hole, so he'll have pages of notes, and that's perfect. I'm like, but me, anybody who listens to the show for a long time knows I don't do research. At least not to the point that you do, and that most times Dave does. But I look up enough to know what I'm talking about, and then I want to ask questions. Like, I want opinions, and I want to talk about it, as opposed to knowing everything, and then I don't need to. So that's kind of the way we're doing it. So today, we're going to talk about a man by the name of Chris Bledsoe and his bizarre and strange experiences. This is me talking about, I'm not going to go as far as saying high strangeness, because I hate that flippant term. But he has definitely had quite the last, decade now? Not even a decade. No.
At least.
It is at least a decade, because the first time he ever, I think, ever went under hypnotherapy first thing was 2012. So it's
Yes.
been at least a decade now of everything. And it's only getting, I guess, weirder, I guess you could say. But let me ask you, just to start us out before we get into his story, what, I guess, attracted you to do all kinds of this research on this particular person?
Really, it's just looking for answers because I mean, I've always been interested more in the paranormal side of everything, and that I never really thought they were connected as far as like the cryptids and ghosts and UFOs. I always thought those were totally separate things, not really something bringing them together, I guess, for a common cause of all those things. And one one trip, I guess, can't remember the year it was, but I was going to Mount St. Helens and happened to stop at this place that had this big Bigfoot thing. And the guy was telling me the stories about him experiencing Bigfoot in the area. And I remember thinking, like, this seems kind of out there. But then he starts telling me how he's renovating his house and he's got these noises and stuff that are going on in there. And it's like, well, that's paranormal because you're changing things. And he's seen apparitions at the water's edge and stuff because he happened to live right by a river. And I just kind of gave him some basic stuff to try to get it to be okay with what he was doing and let him know that he wasn't trying to mess up their environment. He was just fixing it up. And said it seemed to work. So that was that was, I guess, the first time that I really kind of thought maybe there's some connection there to it. And then digging into some of the shows and stuff like that. Also, you see some things that just make it seem, I don't know, it doesn't seem 100% physical, I guess. There seems to be something supernatural about it. It's not just a monkey running through, some unknown species running through the forest that we can't seem to find.
You know, I hate to do this to you, Anthony.
Okay.
But I'm gonna have to. Seeing as how you're a long-time listener of the show, I can't believe that, and maybe that's changed now because this obviously was years ago when you went to Mount St. Helen. But you, at least I hope you know now that UFOs, Bigfoot, cryptids, ghosts, entities, they're all under the blanket of the paranormal. I think at that time, and this is what a lot of people mess up, is there's the paranormal and then there's the supernatural. And so I think you were on the supernatural side of things, but because everybody, paranormal survivor, paranormal encounter, everything that leads you to think that paranormal and supernatural are the exact same thing. And they're not. Supernatural is under the umbrella of the paranormal, but is a separate, title as opposed to cryptids, UFOs, blah 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 blah. But yeah. I hope you know that now.
I do.
Yes, you can remain on the show. I appreciate that. All right, Chris Bledsoe. Not a household name. I mean, unless you are part of the paranormal community, and even if you are, I didn't know who he was until you had mentioned that he was on an episode of Beyond Skinwalker Ranch. And and then I knew because I'd obviously seen that episode. But to me, it was not that important of a name to remember. And you're kind of saying that it is.
It seems to be. He's, I would put, or at least when I started initially hearing about him, I heard him about the same time as they were doing some of the Discovery Channel shows and stuff for Travis Walton and the experiencers like that. Well, they did one with him, but it was kind of over the top-ish in some spots, and I don't know, it just seemed a little out there. And so at that time, I wasn't ready to engage with any of that stuff. So kind of swept that under the rug. And then as I've been interested in Skinwalker Ranch and stuff, when they brought him back on there, it made me look him back up again and look into some of the things that he had going on with him. And then his book came out, read that, and was kind of hooked.
So we're talking about a man who, up until his initial encounter, kind of had the life expectancy that a lot of us had going on. This was back in the housing crisis,
Yep.
and stuff like that of what 2008, I think is what the
2007.
2007.
Yeah.
Right there after the W. Bush, kind of administration when Obama came in. But at that point in time, by your own research, he was on top of the world. Very successful contracting business or construction business, pillar of his community, very, very religious. In fact, there was a part in there, and it didn't come till later when I was going over the story, that he was a deacon.
Yeah, he was actually a deacon for a church in his community up until that point happened. Now, prior to his experience, he did develop Crohn's disease. So everything wasn't the greatest for him, but he was still making it and had a team and getting by. And then the housing market crashed and just everything went to hell, which, yeah.
We'd speed that up.
See that. Yeah.
But basically that's what happened. So he's at the top of his game, minus obviously some health issues, which will come into play later, obviously. But yeah, and then the housing crisis came, and financially he was on the brink of ruin, like a lot of people were at that time, especially if they were part of the housing industry. And really just, everything got so bad. He was close to just being a broken man.
I kind of think he was broken. I mean, he doesn't really go into the depression and stuff like that he was really in, other than it touches on it and says that he was definitely in that mind state and he was reaching out to God for help. So that was one of the things that led up to him, but he was just kind of at the end of the rope. He didn't know what to do and how to move forward with everything.
And during all of this asking for God's help, God then shined down on him and had his wife die in a horrible car wreck.
Yeah, which if you read the book, he blamed himself for, because they had actually they were at a festival when this happened, and he had saw her talking to another guy and thought she was flirting with him, so he got mad and he left. And turns out, he always thought had he stayed, that might not have happened and she might not have died when she did. So he blamed himself for that as well.
See, that's like a Lifetime movie right there.
Yes.
I mean, like that's the things that spice up the cop dramas and stuff, the crying widow, male or female, is sitting there on the couch or whatever, and they're like, oh, if I only hadn't argued with him about this or that. And in fact, I'm not going to go into any details, but I experienced something like that with my parents. So, I mean, there's a lot of that going around. So yeah, he's pretty much lost his business. He's lost his wife. And it still has the health issues to top them all off. But is honestly still trying. He's go ahead.
He's trying to get by, trying to find a way to move forward and get back on his feet, I guess, for his family and stuff at that point.
And he's just got the one son, correct?
No, he's got 3 children, I believe. The 2 boys and I believe a girl, but I might be wrong on that point. They don't really talk about anything other than his first son, which was there when it occurred, and then Ryan, which is seen or experienced some of the things that have happened afterwards and has kind of come out and started talking about them as well.
Okay. Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, his other children really are not mentioned at all, except for Chris Jr. Excuse me. So why don't you take us through what happened that fateful night?
Well, one thing before you get to that is with the loss of his wife as well. He also was the one who actually found her body and after the accident and everything. So that was just on top of how bad the situation was. He happened to be the one that actually found her.
Yep. Praise be the Lord. Sorry, my apologies. Right. Might get that a lot tonight, but anyway, continue.
Okay, so after I guess they had finished one of the jobs, and he wanted to kind of congratulate everyone or have fun with them. They took him out to the river to go fishing, which I guess is a pretty standard thing for them. Mm-hmm. And I at least to me, I feel like it overwhelmed him. So he went and wandered off by himself into the woods and said that he was in a meditative state where he was just trying to pray to God for a path, show him a way out of where he was, because he didn't see a way out of it. And I think he was kind of desperate and was praying, and that is kind of when he saw the lights in the sky, for lack of a better term. He described them as fiery orange orbs. And he said when he noticed them, he watched them for a few seconds, and then he seemed to, I guess it snapped into him that this wasn't normal. There's something different about this. And he said when that popped into his mind, it was like they saw that thought as well and moved to try to interact with him, which, I mean, freaked him out and tried to take off running at that point. He basically went running through the woods and stuff, trying to get away from it, and did not show back up at the camp for several hours afterwards. And in that time frame, his son Joe also experienced something in the woods when he went looking for his father, because they got worried back at the camp that he hadn't showed back up and split off to go search for him. And when he went out to search for him, he saw entities that he basically described as grays out into the woods. He said they were picking up sticks and just walking around, which is weird, but that's the description they gave.
I honestly thought that maybe I had misheard that when I originally came across that. So first thing though, you said his name was Joe. It's Chris Sr. that went
Chris
out.
Sr. Yes.
Yeah, you said his name was Joe.
Sorry, the son.
The son, yeah. Chris Sr. went out looking for his dad. Yeah. But the difference between these and grays is grays don't have red eyes.
True. Yes, that would be a disturbing aspect of his story.
But yeah, they were picking up sticks.
Yeah, like why? Who knows? It's never even elaborated on as to why.
Like that's a claim that just doesn't exist. Like nobody's like, yeah, they're picking up my toys or anything. Like there's no claims, no stories out there except this one of any sort of alien thing, like just randomly picking stuff up. whether it be sticks or anything.
Well, and they also say the eyes kind of, besides being red, or almost biomechanical, I guess, and how they blinked, which I don't know, I can't visualize. I'm assuming it's some sort of like shudder-ish type action is what they were trying to describe,
You know,
which is kind
and
of odd.
that led me to believe that perhaps these were androids of some sort. That they were either that, or if you um, go back to like the movie Independence Day, where they're wearing these biomechanical suits
Oh yeah.
or whatever. Um, but if that's the case, why would they need to blink? Like, why would I get if you want an android or whatever, maybe just for lubrication, because I don't know at all what's going on with these things. Uh, and the thing that I guess, do any red flags about this? Let's just go with devil's advocate. Does any of this set up any red flags for you? Because for me, if something just doesn't make sense, it's because I'm missing something. There's like a piece of information I don't know that will make this like a logical thing. So, I mean, do any red flags about this show up with you?
Yeah, that was, I mean, so in digging into part of this, there was, why to me at first was, why, if he's going out and praying, are UFOs showing up? Because that makes to me no sense really, absolutely at all, because you're talking two totally different things, or at least at that particular point. I thought you're talking spiritual, angelic, praying to God, versus now UFOs show up. That just, I don't know, it seemed kind of weird and out there. But through what he's talking about and digging deeper into it, and if what they say, or what transpired is actually religious, it makes more sense, because you dig into, I guess, the deeper into the background and things being connected the way they are. And there's a lot of speculation that this stuff has been around since the beginning of time. It's just, we describe them different. They went from Tic Tacs now to cigars to, I think they called them tanks during World War II and stuff like that. And then the Foo Fighters and stuff like that. So they say that these things really, that just the description of what we use is changed, but the entity itself hasn't. That these things have been here from the beginning. And then you look into people like Jacques Vallée and stuff like that, and they start talking about, there's things in the Bible that describe what could be considered the same thing that we're seeing today, way back then.
So here's the other thing that it never really sat well with me. Like, if he had an encounter, Chris Senior. Now we're talking about the fiery orbs.
Yes.
If he had this experience, I get it. If he walked to the lake and he was by, or the river and he was by himself, and maybe he was praying or whatnot, I get it. What turns me off from this is him saying, or other people, maybe it's not even him, maybe that's just the interpretation to make this an interesting story, but the whole, like, he got into a meditative state and then he saw them. Like, he had just left the fire with his buddies. He's going through all of these life changes, all of these downturns. He's got every issue under the book. He gets so overwhelmed by just being with his buddies, he's got to walk off by himself. And then he just gets really calm and is able to meditate. Like, that doesn't make any sense to me. I have been in emotional turmoil and I have tried to meditate, and I can't go 5 minutes without getting restless because I'm upset, I'm pissed, I'm depressed, I'm sad, like everything is going wrong. How is it he's able to just be like, after being so overwhelmed, he had to leave his friends? That to me doesn't make any sense.
that part to me doesn't make a whole lot of sense either, because like I've experienced the emotional highs and lows, and yeah, I can't see. To me, that's when you're in that point is a point of desperation, not I don't know. Maybe he had the breaking point and uh, walked away. Got it. I just the mind state I can't really identify with, because to me, I've tried to meditate, and yeah, it's not easy on the
It's not
best of
easy.
days, let alone when there's all sorts of stuff going on. So that part does seem a little weird to me, and almost maybe just coincidental. But I mean, maybe not. It's hard to say because I wasn't there. But I mean, it just seems it does seem odd. It does seem hard to believe at that part of it.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, there. Those are the meditative state was a red flag for me. The whole red eyes. I
That's
agree that they sounded like grays until they got to the red eyes and just picking up sticks. I
yeah,
just,
which is weird.
but it's one of those things. It's like if you were going to make up a story, why would you make up something so ridiculous?
Yeah, that actually to me adds credence to it, because why would you make up all these things that are not like the norm of everything else that was already being reported out there? Because it was definitely different from other experiencers and other stories that were out there at the time.
Very
And
much
him
so.
and him saying that they were from God and there was a spiritual type thing definitely goes against the norm of everything else.
Well, now we're transferring back over to Chris Senior.
Yes. Sorry.
No, it's all right. Um, but yeah, so I mean, I guess it's important to note that both Chris Senior and Chris Junior were having these separate instances at pretty much at the same time.
Yes.
It's just they weren't in like visual view of each other. They had no idea. Um, so Chris Senior, after when he starts to run away, all of a sudden time's gone. Like he's just there's like a huge void in his
Yes.
memory. So he gets back to
The
the rest
camp.
of the rest of the camp. Uh, Chris Jr. is already back. He's already had his experiences, but Chris Sr. thinks that only like 20 minutes has gone by, and then
Correct.
he finds out that he's actually been gone for 4 hours.
Yes.
Um, and so the next morning, Chris Sr. wakes up and he finds that he no longer like needs his daily medication. Like the
Yeah.
symptoms of Crohn's disease that he had are like no longer there. Like he just does not need to take this medication, and it comes to find out he no longer has it. He's been cured.
Yes. Yeah. He goes to I think a couple of different hospitals. One main one, I guess, in the area, which is for testing, and basically finds that any trace of the Crohn's disease is gone, which is pretty miraculous in itself, because there's no cure for it. So it doesn't just go away.
Yeah, I got. Uh, it took me a long time to figure out I got gout that just showed
Ah,
up. It took me like months to figure out what the hell was even going on, and it's still there. It hasn't bothered me in a very very long time, but it's still effing there. Um, but yeah, it would be the exact same thing. Well, it's not the exact same thing, but I mean, people get my
if
point.
it was just gone, yeah.
Yeah, if it was just gone, I woke up and I was like, hey, my foot looks normal. Uh, like that would be something you would notice. But so he's been cured, and uh, miraculously, nobody has any idea how or why. Um, and that's not all that started happening.
No, that was the initial part of it, and I want to say that it was several more encounters after that is when he describes the lady entity showing up to him, and that, in at least in the book, is described pretty vividly, because he's basically been ostracized by his community, the community in general, because he's come out and he's tried to tell people what's been going on with him, have said that he is interacting with demonic spirits and demonic entities, and pretty much cast him out of the church and out of the community. And even some in the community went as far as to try to get his children taken away by by the child services, because they said that he was psychotic and there were mental issues and stuff like that going on there.
So I want to pause here and talk a little about that, because to me, you would think that with everything that has been happening in the last 20 years, that the paranormal and the supernatural and even UFOs and whatnot have gotten so much cast into the mainstream, where, I mean, people just all over the world have all of these encounters, that people have come to more easily accept it. And this guy comes out and, I mean, he's not saying it's the end of the world or anything. He's just trying to tell his own story. And he's like literally being told he's insane. And like him and his entire family are a danger to the community. And this is a flippin' deacon.
Yeah.
That used to give sermons to people. And all of a sudden he's insane. Like, what is your take on an entire community reacting like that?
When I read and heard about what happened there, I can only assume that it's a very religious area, traditional religious area where he's at I know he's in North Carolina in Fayetteville, but I can only assume it's very strict religious there. So anything outside the norm is considered satanic or whatever. But I was like, to me, I really got Salem vibes. Like, they're persecuting this guy because he's coming out telling them what's happening. And then I'm like, you're like, okay, well, I've never heard a demonic story start out with, first it healed me from this chronic disease that there's no cure for.
Like, you would think, honestly, I mean, if he got rid of the UFO part, like he saw these orbs in the sky or whatever, and he was missing 4 hours, if he just came out and he was like, I've been, like, people would think that he was, Jesus reincarnate.
Yes. I mean, and that's honestly the direction I thought it probably would have taken with that, but maybe it was the UFO thing that kind of threw that out of whack. One of the other things that they kind of don't touch on, it touches on in the book, is the fact that they were not the only ones to see something in the sky that night, because there were other reports to like MUFON and stuff like that people saw objects. So it's not even like they were just the only ones that saw something. They were just the ones that came out and said, he publicly came out and said all about it, which I guess is what led to him being the focus of all the outrage from the community, which kind of seems crazy.
It absolutely just burns my hide that, like, just tons and tons of people will try to ruin one man or one family just so they can continue to keep their head buried in the sand.
I totally agree with that. And you would think if they really thought that there was some mental health issues or something like that, that they would be wanting to help him, not make his life a living hell, because that's pretty much what it was described as.
And let me just say, when I make that statement, that's not a knock on anybody's religion or faith. People are allowed to believe whatever they want. My issue is the people who would take that and use it to ruin somebody else. Because they don't want to agree, they don't want to believe what this other person believes. That's what I have the issue with. And I feel for this guy, and it's just, my question is, why didn't they just move? Like, they stayed.
I don't think he had at that particular time. I don't think they had the money or the resources to just up and take off and get out of there. And they were already established. Kids had friends. Wife was part of the community. Now, of course, that kind of all went to hell with all that. But I'm assuming it was money that basically kept them where they were, and the fact that they didn't have the money to just up and move out of there.
Fine.
Yeah,
I will accept that premise. So he's I mean, now it's almost like he's traded one evil for another. So he still has his financial issues.
Yes.
But now instead of being and he still doesn't have a wife. So all of that is still gone. But now he's healthy. But now he's ostracized from like his entire life.
Yeah, pretty much still can't get jobs and kind of cut off from everything.
And so it's almost like the universe was like, you're about to die and we don't want that. You have a lot more suffering to do, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to cure you so that you can live longer and be miserable even more. Like that just seems to...
He does touch on stuff like that as well, because he said when it happened, he kept going outside and asking why did you do this if you're just going to make things, if it was just going to make things worse. Because in his opinion, it was like, well, you okay, well, now I'm at least not physically ill, but now I got to live with the persecution 24/7 from the community where he's at, and he's stuck there and he can't get out.
and honestly, anybody, especially who has listened to my conversations with Cena over the course of many shows, like I'm definitely one for the universe not having a sense of humor, and whatever it wants, it doesn't give a rat's caboose about what it's going to do with you. It just wants it done. Right. So things start to change, obviously. So we trade one evil for another, but away from the community now, he's experiencing more activity. And this is even before the lady shows up, which we're coming to, people. Just relax. But he's seen more orbs. I mean, not necessarily like the ones that he originally saw, but he's experiencing more activity as opposed to before this all happened.
Yeah, the activity is pretty regular, and he's seeing the orbs, and they seem to be interacting with him as far as doing things or moving around and following him around, and him seeing them on the properties and stuff like that. He did get to the point where he got frustrated and went out there and basically was like, "What do you want from me?" Which is when the lady appears, because he's like, "I don't know what you want from me. This is not really bearable. This is the same thing as it was before." He goes, "This is not really sustainable the way that you have this going." And she appeared to him, she said, in the book, he describes it as a bull rushes against, like an ethereal bull, plows him over into the field. And when he looks up, it's her. She's there, glowing, hovering, I think he says 2 feet off the ground, with the light aura. He described her as a light being, with the most beautiful woman he'd ever seen.
Okay. And what does she say? Do we know what she said to him this first time to, I guess, introduce herself?
As far as I know, the recalling from what I'm recalling from that particular point was that he had a purpose, and he was to inform people of what was going to happen, and that he needed to spread the word, and people it's kind of the same trope as every other experience or thing, or at least to me, it seems to be the same thing. Quit screwing up the planet, be more aware, don't close your mind, care more about things, and everything is kind of got to connect. Everything is kind of connected. is basically what she told him. And that he was going to, she did tell him he wasn't going to live a long life. And because of him carrying the message, he would have the gifts and see the things that he has said he's seen.
Interesting. So here's the question that comes up, and I'd like your opinion on it. And I've been waiting to this point to ask it. And like I can't. One of the things that Cena has told me about me is that, you know, kind of one of my purposes is as a truth teller. She says that's why I need to continue to do this show, so that I can get the word out, so I can, you know, bring on the guests so they can get the word, you know, that I can convey just as he's supposed to, the truth of what is going on. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. It's Cena. So, but every time you and I had this conversation earlier this week, every time that I think she says things that's batshit crazy, somebody else comes along later and repeats the same thing.
It happens more often than you think.
Oh, I don't doubt it. I don't doubt it at all anymore. So do I agree with that? Who knows? But I like doing the show, and if that's an added bonus, you know, good for me. So do you think, and this is the question, that somebody like him and the people like him, because I don't necessarily see like Travis Walton as being like Chris Bledsoe. Travis Walton had an experience, and that's it. Like he doesn't have any of these.
It traumatized him. It traumatized him. I've heard. I was gonna say I've heard people talk about when he talks about that thing, and you can, like, he physically reacts to when he starts telling the story and stuff like that. So,
oh no, that's not what I meant. I don't doubt his experience. I just mean he that's it. Like he had that experience. Like everything else has been man-made. You know, his experience with the community. He doesn't have, like, you know, remote viewing capabilities. He doesn't have, you know, the lady coming to see him. Like that. That's just what I mean. He's kind of a one-hit wonder, and then as experiencers go.
Yeah, the closest you kind of get to Bledsoe is something like that, with experiencing and seeing those things, is Greer. That's to me, but I don't
Dr.
know.
Greer.
Yeah, there's just something besides the $10,000-$15,000 that it takes to experience those things with him. But
yeah, so and I think that's kind of but you know, here's my question. Do you think that somebody has to be broken? Like somebody has to be at such a point where they're willing to accept anything in order to get out of whatever they're doing at the time, that is when they are given, I guess, the truth. Like, I mean, because Chris seems to have been on his last leg, to the point where he's just like why, what do you want from me? Like, that is the question you ask the gods or the skies or whatever when you have nothing left. You know, when you are looking for a reason to even continue to go, you know, to get up the next day. That's when you ask that question. And then boom, she was right there. Like, do you think that they're waiting for specific people to reach certain downs or even ups, maybe, in their lives where they're willing to accept anything?
I do kind of think there's something to being broken the way that he was, and him being open to anything at that particular point, to hear some sort of promising or some sort of positive thing. I also think that maybe because you've experienced all that stuff, maybe that gives you a different perspective, I guess. and the will to actually be able to take this on and push forward with it.
There's a show that keeps coming back to me. In fact, an exact scene in the show. As we're talking about this, as I'm learning more about him, and it's the Dead Zone. You ever seen the show with Anthony Michael Hall?
Yeah.
And stuff. Well, I mean, he was the original one that obviously did with Christopher Walken, but I'm talking about the actual show that they made. Yeah. And one of my favorite episodes. I could watch this episode. I probably watch this episode at least a dozen times, and I love it every time. And he is pretty much given up on the world, on his ability, the Dead Zone, to see things in the future after, one of his close friends, which he saw coming, was killed. And couldn't, he had to play God and couldn't, he couldn't make sense of why would they give him this gift and not let him change something. Yeah. And he says, if there's one thing that I will admit to, or I will concede, or however he phrased it, it is, my place in this world. If obviously this tornado is coming to kill him and his friends, and he's like, I will accept it. I will accept my place in this world and the gift that you have given me, as long as you spare my friends. And I'm wondering if that's when, obviously the storm did it, but go watch the episode. It's great. But I'm wondering if that's why the lady came at that point in time. Like, he was finally just like, I'm willing to accept my place in this world. What is it? Tell me what my place in this world is. And do you think maybe that's why she came at that time?
I do think that he was at that point, and he basically was like, tell me what you want or go away. So yeah, I kind of do think that was the, like, either do something or just leave me alone. I do think he was at that point of desperation with everything with that.
I mean, I guess it comes to the point where you're just like, enough of the games. Like, and the thing about it is, and this is why I don't, because you and I were talking right before we came on the show about things that I liked about this and things that I didn't.
Yes.
And one of the things, and I get it, I get his frustration. He's seeing all these orbs, he's seeing all things, but he doesn't know why. He doesn't get that information. It's just happening. And as somebody who loves to know why, like, I need to have that information. I crave it. And Cena laughs at me all the time because I won't just accept what she tells me. I need to know why. And, but this just seems to be another game. And I'm going to tell you why, but first, why don't you tell people kind of like the main, I don't want to say prediction, but the main message that the lady has had for him that's kind of made this like the most famous.
Well, when he did a regression, I believe 2012-ish, is basically during the regression, she pulled out that she had told him when the red star of Regulus aligns with before the dawn, in the gaze of the Sphinx, a new knowledge will come into the world, and this will be an end of an old way and the beginning of a new one. Now he thinks it's going to happen around Easter 2026. Just from me digging into it, astronomically, it would put it right in around September of 2026 is when those things should line up the way that he's predicting them.
Okay. So here's my problem. You have this, for all intents and purposes, a goddess, some sort of being of extreme power and knowledge, and she's coming down to share this information with him, and she's as cryptic and vague as humanly flippant possible.
Yeah.
I can't stand that. Like, why can't she be like, okay, when Regulus lines up with the Sphinx, which is going to be September of 2026, your time, as humanity does it, this person is going to die and the whole world is going to do this, or we're going to reveal ourselves to the human race at this point in time. And so all religious aspects and all that is going to go out the window, and we're going to dawn in this new era of humanity. Why can't she just say that? But instead, she's got to go like some cheap ass horoscope who's like, you're going to make a difficult decision today. We do that all the goddamn time. Every day we make a difficult decision. What she's talking about is rhetorical nonsense, and is something that we are obviously supposed to figure out. And I just like, that's not on Chris. I don't blame Chris for this. My problem is just the garbage that those who have the knowledge seem to want to give us little breadcrumbs throughout history and hope that we know what the hell we're supposed to do with it. And then when we don't, like, it's just like, oh, well, they didn't do that right. Let's move on to the next step.
I kind of think that or at least what they're wanting to push forward is the whole faith aspect, which is, I'm much like you. I like the proof. I like to know why is it like that? Why is this going to happen? I like to know the mechanics of it, which is kind of a hard thing for me to step back from and just look at it from a faith point of view, or that mindset, I guess.
The other thing that I have an issue, and this I don't know, considering this has nothing to do with the lady, this is actually Bledsoe, is the timing. Because he's like, I think this is going to happen about Easter 2026. Okay. But you have an exact point in time when Regulus lines up in the early dawn of, in the gaze of the Sphinx.
Yes.
NASA and scientists and astronomers can pinpoint where an asteroid is going to go in like 2035. It's not even in our solar system, and they can see how far and how close it's going to come to Earth. You don't think we can figure out when Regulus is going to line up with the Sphinx?
See, now I have thought about that, because it's like, well, why would you predict it around Easter if everything else points to September? But what if it does happen in Easter? Wouldn't that make it even more spectacular than, okay, well, this happens every year, or this happens every cycle of whatever years this is that this lines up in the equinoxes, if it happened out of that time frame?
I don't know. Let me do a Google search. I bet Google could figure it out. I'll put, when will Regulus line up with the Sphinx?
Yep.
Let's see here. So you can hear me typing. When will Regulus... Look, it even finished it for me. When will Regulus, that's all I typed in, and then it finished a line with the Sphinx. So let's see what it says. Here's what the AI overview was. The statement about Regulus aligning with the Sphinx just before dawn, bringing new knowledge. So this is exactly what it is. This is exactly, it even says according to Chris Bledsoe. So this is about that. Is not a scientifically recognized astronomical event. It seems to be a reference from a specific source, possibly a quote or a personal belief. So this hasn't even been like scientifically proven that it's even going to happen.
No, because for the star to be red, it has to be lower in the atmosphere. There's a bunch of different things that have to transpire to get it to be like the like what he said was supposed to happen.
Okay, so the reason why they say that this is not an astronomical event It says there's no scientifically recognized astronomical event where a star aligns precisely with a physical structure like the Sphinx. So apparently, like, no star is supposed to really align with the Sphinx. The only reason that the Regulus and the Sphinx are associated is because they're both linked to the constellation Leo.
Yeah.
The idea of a specific alignment bringing a new knowledge is not based on scientific observation. It's likely a symbolic representation or a belief. So, I guess that's all we have.
Kind of that came up though.
Yeah, that's, well, I mean, honestly, I mean, it's the exact, I shouldn't say it's not the exact same. It's like the reversal of the people who are trying to predict the end of days.
Oh, yeah.
Like, and you have it like every other year, there's some psycho out there who's like, well, I looked at the Bible, and based on these numbers and these calculations, based in the book of David, the new end of days is going to be March 31st, 2023. And then March 23rd, 2023 comes out, and it is, oh, we made a miscalculation, but because of this, and in the book of Leo, these calculate, now it's going to be, April 30th, 2025. And then April 30th, 25 comes and goes, and there's nothing to have. Oh, we miscalculated, let's do it. And we start over again. Like, this just seems to be like the opposite of that. Now we have something where it's going to be, well, by our calculations in this, something great is going to happen. It's going to be the start of days.
See, and I'm always, whenever anyone puts a prediction out like that, it always makes me a little skeptical. But that also gives you, like, well, now you've kind of tied yourself to a timeline that something needs to occur by. So,
and I'm not saying that it can't happen. I'm not, because even though everything would have to work out so specifically, like, who's to say some random star in some distant galaxy doesn't blow, which changes the gravitational alignment of Regulus and moves it this way, and all of a sudden it is going to intersect with the Sphinx. I don't know. Obviously, we'll find out next year, apparently. Yep. So, but right now, I like so much of this story, and there's scientific, physical proof that he has abilities.
Yes.
There's no doubt about it, and I'm not questioning him. It's just, I hate trying to take, I don't want to say take advice, but taking knowledge from entities who just show up and start throwing crap out. And, is it for our good? Is it for somebody else's good? I don't know.
Yeah, that is the question.
It is. And obviously, I've never been in the presence of the lady. The lady has never talked to me. And if she wants to, I'm here. I'm a good listener.
Well, he tells you in his book, he tells you how to do it. Just go outside and put your mind and heart together and say you're here for it. And supposedly things will happen.
Yes, but what?
Well, that is the question.
Yes, that is the question. It's and he's still getting messages to this day, correct?
Yes, he still has, and they do events and stuff. Theirs are not like some of the other people who charge an arm and a leg for things, but they do events, and you can show up to them if you're in the areas and stuff. And just from what I've heard from everyone that has gone to these things, they pretty much see things when they show up to these things. I don't know how he's not more out there in the news and stuff like that, if that's the case. My only, I guess, hesitation would be like some of the messages are cryptic and stuff like that he's gotten from it. And that's kind of, you could almost say that that's tricksterish type behavior.
Well, I mean, it's like I said, it's just rhetorical garbage right now. I mean, especially, I mean, honestly, if he made this announcement or he made this prediction, prophecy, whatever, and then science, like astronomers were like, well, holy garbage, you know, Regulus is supposed to align with the Sphinx in, September of 2026. Like, this is an actual event. I think it would hold a lot more credence.
Oh yeah, definitely.
But that's probably why, because I mean, he is. If you look at Dr. Greer, which obviously you've made reference to him a couple times,
yes,
Dr. Greer obviously has he has made he has found the ability to profit off of this, and I wonder if he was like a chosen one. And then when he varied from his path in order to make money off of it, they went to somebody else.
That my gut feeling, yes, that's exactly what happened. Because like I have heard other people say that they have basically done the steps that he talks about to go through the process of having an experience, and they work, and for whatever reason it's kind of pushed him to the side and taken someone else as the person to go forward with. But as far as like his method and stuff, there are people that say that his methods do work, and if you try them, like don't try them, I guess, being skeptical, because make sure you're in the right mind frame to actually experience something, because it can happen.
And I don't doubt that for a moment. I honestly don't. I have tried, not that, but I mean I've tried to be more open and not so rigid in what I believe in which again gives Cena great joy in order to try and break me. But I still am quite stubborn and will remain so for quite a while until things are explained. Like I've told her flat out, I'm like, if you would just tell me why this is, or explain why this is, or how this is, I would be able to accept it a hell of a lot more than you just telling me what it is. And
show me the proof. And I get that.
Show your work. That's all.
Yeah.
Strong division. Show your work. That's all I need. You can't just come up and tell me, the square root of 144 is it 12? I think it's 12. I'm not sure. But anyway, yes, it is 12. Go me. But yeah, anyway. I mean, but beyond this one prediction, for next year, has anything else been said, or is that like the one message that?
There's claims that 2015, when the Pope visited here, that he had a vision and basically contacted higher ups in the government, and there were some people arrested, and there's been no public confirmation that it had anything to do with Chris Bledsoe, but there was something that happened around that time frame, just not confirmed to him. But he talks about it in the book happening like that, and you've got several higher ups, including NASA, that has been interested in him. And basically he says that he's gone to NASA because they have questions about the astronauts seeing beings when they're up in space and stuff like that. And they don't even, I guess some of their questions were, why are you the one that is being told these things?
Mm-hmm. And that's a question I think anybody not only does ask but deserves to know.
Well, yeah, because it's like, what makes you special? What
Not you don't even have to consider yourself special.
special?
Like it just, you can just be, maybe you're just far more open than other people, or maybe you have a certain connection to people. He was a deacon. Maybe he's a good person to bridge the gap between what people consider to be religious in God and what is extraterrestrial in origin. Maybe he can bridge that gap. Uh,
Yeah.
I think that there's a lot of characteristics and like a lot of, I don't want to say qualifications, but I mean, there's a lot of things about people that we might not even think of. You don't necessarily need to be special. You just need to be in the right place at the right time for the job, I suppose.
Yeah, and everything when the interviews that I've seen him do, and when he talks, he comes off as very genuine, very down to earth. Not it. He's just a very genuine, real person. He doesn't come off as a personality or anything like that, or like he's putting on airs or anything. He just explaining what happens to him.
Yeah, and I like that. The whole humbleness to it.
Oh, definitely.
And when you don't break, when you don't change your message because society doesn't, because that's one of the things that I don't like about the Catholic Church. They change all the time to fit society in order to
Well,
keep people, yeah,
they're
to
trying to get
try
more
to,
practitioners.
well, exactly. And I don't like that. I
No,
I
I don't.
like I like somebody who's like, this is the way it is, and I can't change that.
Yeah,
And
and
this
much
is
like you, I'm not knocking anyone's religion, but I've had that talk with a couple of people, and it's like if it's the word of God and you interpret it, you can't change that interpretation when you're finding that this age demographic is getting low in the pew, so we need to change what this means now to match what they think, so that we'll get more of them coming in. And it's like, yeah, it doesn't work like that. It either is what it is or it's not. It's like you can't have it both ways.
well, apparently they can't, because they have, what,
Well,
1.6 billion per uh, people as part of the Catholic Church. So yeah, they can. But um, but yeah, and I think that's a great place to leave off, honestly, because next week, uh, and I haven't gotten the okay from him yet, but I'm hoping that Scott will join us for our conversation. Um, and we are going to be talking about the Book of Enoch, which has obviously very big religious ties and stuff like that. But uh, should be an amazing discussion, especially if he joins, because for anybody who doesn't know or hasn't listened to the episodes that Scott are on when it comes to religious studies and the Bible, and there's nobody more knowledgeable than that guy, in my opinion. Um, his knowledge and uh, just gonna knock your socks off. So I'm hoping that he'll join us for that. But otherwise, just you and I will talk about it. And
hopefully he can join. I'm looking forward to that as well.
yes, me too. I'll convince him. Sometimes he's one of those. He's at the age where if he's going to do something, it's gonna be meaningful. Like he wants to be like contribute to the conversation, and if he doesn't feel like he's going to contribute anything that of like obscene importance, and he's like, why would I even do it? That type of thing. So I'll convince him that he's needed. We'll be good. But that is our topic for next week.
Okay.
So for anybody who has been intrigued by our discussion today about the story of Chris Bledsoe, and especially of the lady, go out and do um, uh, do your own research into it. Come up with your own thing. If you have any questions about it, feel free to reach out. I can send it to Anthony. He'll answer it because I probably won't. I probably won't. I would just send it to you because you have more knowledge than I do, and I'm
no worries.
Perfectly happy to admit that. But yeah, that does it for our show here. Unless you have any final thoughts on this.
No, that's what I wanted it for, was to bring the discussion up and basically have people have their own questions and dig a little more deeper into it.
I definitely have my own questions. But we will channel Dave here for a second. Anybody who listens to the show and has questions or thinks a little bit deeper about things, that is the point of the show. So, and Mr. Hernandez, I have to say, for the topics that we are going to discuss over the next at least probably 2-3 weeks, people will be thinking, because I know I have. So I appreciate that. I appreciate bringing all of these things to the table in your research. And yeah, thank you for just coming on and joining me for the next couple of weeks.
Oh, thank you for the chance to. So hopefully Dave gets better quick.
I know you say that out of respect and love for the guy, but you're just like, yeah, I'm your co-host while he's sick. I hope he's back quickly. But okay. So until next time, stay healthy, stay safe. We want to see you back here. Everyone, have a good rest of the weekend and a happy Memorial Day.